one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because you're an immigrant
Yeah,
in Finland, and
yeah.
kind of you have a different perspective that I do about Finnish things, and maybe about the current politics in Finland and
I don't
all
know. I
that
think we might
stuff.
share an opinion about the current politics in Finland.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's true.
yeah, yeah. I guess I do maybe have a different opinion. I remember talking with another person who moved here from somewhere else, and we sort of just started talking about Finland and Finnish people, and this person's married to a Finn, and they were like, yeah, I bring this stuff up and they don't get it. And then I'm like, yeah, it's like you don't you notice these certain things, but it's because whenever you're like an outsider, you sort of notice things that an insider just doesn't pick up on. It's been like that kind of their whole life. So, and it's like trivial things. It can be.
Do you remember some of the first things when you've been here almost like almost 20 years?
Yeah, yeah, I
So
have, yeah.
do you remember the first things when you came here? What were the first things that struck
I
you?
mean, there's the old joke that like Finn's always asking you sort of, uh, where are you from? What are you doing here? Um, uh, sometimes how long are you going to be here? And then do you like Finland? Like, they were like real concerned with like whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
Which I don't know if you get that in every country if you move to, maybe some of those questions, but Finns seem to be real concerned with whether people like Finland or not. And then um, I didn't like the rye bread, ruisleipä, when I first moved here. But then I remember like one day having it, like toast it and some butter on it, and it sort of just clicked. And I was like, oh, this is really good. Like this is really, really good. I get it now. Because you heard from Finns all the time like how good it was. Um, what else? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was pretty young when I moved here, so I didn't really have, I guess, much life experience to kind of
mm,
compare it to. I think it would be a lot different if I moved here now at this age. I would have work experience in another place and or like home ownership experience or renting experience, something like that. So I didn't have much of that. Um, so I think uh, it would be different if I moved here at a different time, but or maybe then I just don't have a good enough memory to remember.
yeah,
I know the because I moved here in September, or well, yeah, like August, September, sometime around then, and I didn't have a job and I didn't know a lot of people. And so it was getting darker all the time, and it was kind of like if you don't keep yourself busy in the winter, it's really dark and it'll mess with you. There's like this whole other side of me that I didn't know existed, that came out. But
the dark side.
the dark side, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, nowadays, like I'm too busy during the winter. Yeah, the winter's terrible and it's dark and it sucks, but you sort of, as long as you're busy, it's okay, I think.
So if you're like you have your own kids now, so do you think if you go back when you were a kid in the States,
Hmm.
is it really different for like if you compare it to your kids? If you're trying to like, of course, times have changed, but is there something really different about the upbringing, what you had,
Um,
what your friends had?
yeah, maybe. I mean, they talk about now like, well, our kids take the city bus to school. If we were closer, they could walk there. We're not actually that far, so they can ride their bikes sometimes as well. And I think that's different. Like I took a school bus to school, so the school bus would come pick me up. Um, so so that's kind of different. What else? I don't know. I was like personally, I think I was well, I don't know. I was always playing sports growing up, on some like recreation team or school team or something like that. But maybe that's just because, that's what you do. Like you put your kid soccer or baseball or whatever in the summertime, and then something in the wintertime, basketball or something. So maybe I just knew that like growing up. But then when I was a teenager, I mean, I liked playing sports, so I kept up with it because I had friends who didn't. I had friends who dropped it and did other stuff. Whether it was like skateboarding, or anything else. So, um, but differences like in terms of raising kids, I don't know. I think you probably just learn how to raise your kids from your parents usually, right? You try to just do
Yeah, I
better
think
than your
so.
parents did. Like,
Don't make the
um,
same mistakes.
yeah, but then find yourself doing, you're like, oh man, I sound like my dad, you know? So,
Yeah, that's true. I'm not sure what, like, I've been thinking this a lot lately. Like when I was a kid in the like late 80s, early 90s,
mm,
like many of my friends, like the atmosphere in people's homes was really different than nowadays. I
okay.
don't know if you had the same experience when you were growing up, but like early 90s, it was kind of the depression here. People
Yeah,
didn't have any money, and a lot of people lost their jobs and
yeah.
so forth. And I think it took a toll on many families, and it was really kind of usually when you went to a friend's house, the atmosphere was usually heavy, and it was
Oh, okay.
like you felt like okay, you shouldn't be there. They just wanted the kids go out, and
Okay.
the parents didn't like talk to each other much. And I remember just so many cases like that.
Yeah.
But now it seems so different. Like I have a lot of friends who have kids, and like how they deal with their kids, and it's just totally different.
Well, the US didn't have the same kind of depression in the 90s as Finland did. It had it earlier, like before I was born, because I'm around the same time as you, 80s and early 90s growing up. So it was I was born after the one that happened in like the late 70s and early 80s. But I grew up middle class, so you were kind of welcome in your friend's house. They did want us outside though, and I mean, I remember back then, like there wasn't that much. We had video games and they were fun, Sega Genesis or something like that.
Mm.
But we were also outside a lot. Like we were doing stuff outside a lot. And there wasn't YouTube or Netflix or anything like that. So like your kind of shows that you would be into, they were on at a certain time. And then if you missed them, they're not on, just
Mm.
like the news or talk shows or something like that. Um, but yeah, like nowadays I think about how, I would just like leave a note for my parents, like I'm going to so and so's house, or I kind of grew up in the countryside, so it was like I'm going riding my bike over here, we're going to the creek or whatever like that, and just leave a note for them, and didn't have a cell phone or something like that. Now it's like I can contact my kids anytime at all, or if they go out, it's like take your phone kind of thing. So that's a lot different for sure.
Yeah, I think like probably has to do with like different generations, and like parents nowadays they're much open, like and like can talk about their emotions and that sort of stuff. And it
Yeah,
was it was hard, like people born in 40s 50s, they didn't have the like their parents were like from the early 1900s. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it kind of like turned around for us, me and my friends from the US, when we got to be adults. Then it was like they started treating us like adults. They started treating us, kind of talking to us like adults. And I remember, in my 20s, when we would be going out somewhere to somebody's party or like a show or just going out or something like that, we would go over and talk to whoever's parents for wherever we were meeting, talk to whoever's parents for a little while, like sit down with them, talk to them, see how it's going, and then we would head out. Like, um, and and it was like it was kind of like a definite shift, because before, growing up, they were treating us like kids, like making sure we're staying out of trouble and that kind of stuff. But then as he got older, it was like, they kind of like, well, we did what we can do now. You're
Yeah.
adults now, so you got to keep yourselves out of trouble. Like, but but yeah, I think um the generation, it's probably similar. The adults, my grandparents being of, they were born in the like teens and 20s, and they were probably pretty silent on talking about feelings and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, but I think then the generation after them and after that was better.
Yeah, I think so too.
It seems like the newer generation is even better at it too, though. It seems like the younger generation is sort of much more aware of things. And
Yeah, you usually it works like that, but and I think always the like older generation seems like they've gone too far. Like
oh yeah, of course.
the way we did it was the best, and they talk too much about their emotions and like
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, this rock and roll music is
yeah, it's
corrupting the
terrible.
minds. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They're
Yeah, I
gonna go to
mean,
jail. And,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's always going to be that way, you know. It's with everything that like it's gone too far, it's too much, or and something like that. I always tell like because I'm a teacher in the university, so I teach linguistics classes, and people have a big problem with language changing. So, but it's always like um language was totally fine when people were between the ages of like 25 and 35, when life was totally fine, things were
mm,
looking up, they were now like adults, they were probably making some money, they had their life ahead of them, and then they sort of hit 45 or 50 and they're like, oh wait, no, stop, like you gotta, it's too much, it's too far. And it's like, wait a minute,
yeah,
like everything, what language was like perfect when you were 30 years old, like come on. So
yeah.
it's kind
It's
of,
the
you
same.
see it.
It's the same in Finnish. Like there's a lot of many people say that there's too much words from English that are translated that are not translated, but like taken exactly like
Yeah,
just put some two letters in the end and it's a Finnish word. There's
yeah,
lots
yeah.
of those, and some people
Yeah,
say that it's like ruining the Finnish language, but it's
yeah, yeah. But
sounds
it's
silly.
also a lot of like those kinds of things. You use them when you're a teenager because it's cool or something, and then some of them stick around and some of them don't. People drop them. They get to be 25 or something, they don't use them anymore. It's the same thing. Like if it didn't come from somewhere else and it was just a kind of like cool or hip or new slang word that you use when you're like 17, all of a sudden doesn't seem very cool when you're 19 or something like that. Like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm out of high school now, I don't talk like that anymore. So it's kind of, it's not like somebody uses it one time, it's going to stay in the language forever, you know but
yeah.
yeah.
Do you keep up with like all the new like uh how the kids speak nowadays? Like,
No, it's not something I like research. So no, I can't keep up with like slang, and it moves really fast, of course, because it's slang, and it like there can be certain like, well, there's certain groups use certain types of slang, so you can't kind of follow all the groups, especially if you're not like a, a member of that group. If you're not talking to people like that or talking online like that or visiting those communities or stuff. So I can't keep up with like all the kind of stuff. I think by the time it gets to me, it's not cool anymore. And like if I
yeah,
know it, then it's like it's old school or something. So um
yeah.
but
I was kind of surprised because I recently watched some videos of like teenagers, and I couldn't understand the well, every word they were saying. Like usually it's not a problem with me, but
yeah,
there was some new words that I didn't know what they were about.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, think about it too. Now it's gonna be like, so you see them on like YouTube or something like that, but then in a few years they're gonna be on like a TV show, you know, and you're gonna be like, oh, wait a minute, now they're on
Yeah.
TV, like, you know, because it's gonna be that generation kind of grows up, and then they're like, okay, we have to write teenagers talking now, so they use their slang, but you know, by that time it's maybe so. That's probably gonna happen to me too. Like, if I had more time to watch TV, it probably would happen right now. Like, there'd be certain slang words that I wouldn't know, or depending on the type of show or something. So, yeah, yeah.
Cool. I
Mm.
saw uh was it Instagram or so? You went to see the new Barbie
Yeah,
movie. Was it good?
yeah. We saw it last night at the open air, the Kino Engel
Oh
has
yeah, I've been there.
this yeah, and they have like it's a kind of courtyard that they do it in.
Yeah.
So you're outdoors, and then they have the screen up on the wall there, and yeah, it was amazing. It was late. It started late. It started at 11. So I was like, oh, I hope I'm able to stay up through this movie. And I was totally, because the movie was excellent. It was really good. Um, we were talking about how we felt underdressed though, because every, and it was a surprise for me. So it was a anniversary present from my wife, and so I didn't know we were going until a few hours before the movie started. But yeah, people were in pink. And then this one woman showed up, and she had like well, kind of like a Barbie dress on, like an evening gown, you know, that
Uh,
like flares out as it goes to the feet. Um, yeah, like so big, like she couldn't sit in the chair, kind of thing. Like the dress was just like huge. Um, but the movie was really good. I liked it. It was. I mean, it's getting a lot of good reviews, and I think it deserves it. It was really funny, which was good. Um, there were some musical numbers in it, which I didn't know they were going to have, and one at the end that was really, really impressive. And then it's very like there's a lot of like meta commentary about society in general and the history of Barbie and what Barbie represents and this kind of stuff. And so they had, I think, um, they set themselves up for a lot of like tricky situations. Like, how do we sort of incorporate all this, like this history of Barbie, but then there's this kind of like consumerist culture and capitalist culture, and there's like sexism involved and race and everything like that. And they set up a lot of tricky things to deal with. But I don't know, they did a pretty good job in like at least sort of like facing them, you know, head on with the story. Um, yeah, it was really good. I recommend it. I think you should go see it. It's good.
yeah, because first time you hear like Barbie movie, that can't be good. Like it's impossible. But if it's so if it's done in a good way, I guess.
Yeah, well, I've seen some other Barbie movies because I have a young kid who watches Barbie movies, and like the animation or the Barbie show that's on Netflix. So I don't know if I'd watch like 2.5 hours of that, or however long the movie is, 2 hours or something like that. But then that's the kind of very Barbie that you're thinking of. It's like a, you know,
Yeah.
kids show, kids movie. But no, this one is, I don't know what are they, the age limit on it is, the rating. But it's definitely pitched towards adults.
Yeah.
It's not like they do like there's a like cursing or sex scenes or anything like that. But it's like adults will get more out of it. I think they'll understand a lot more of it.
Yeah, I have to see that one.
Yeah.
Have you read about the it's sound of something, like Sound of Freedom or something, like uh new movie, but it's Jim Caviezel is like playing the lead role, and
Okay.
it's Mel Gibson. I think it's Mel Gibson's like production company or something like that.
Okay.
And I was just like looking on YouTube, and I saw the trailer and some like interviews of Jim Caviezel. He's like really religious, like religious right, and they were
Is
kind of
he?
like, yeah. And
Okay.
he was the one who played like
He
JC,
played
like Jesus
Jesus.
Christ, on
Yeah.
what's the name? Passion of the Christ
Yeah.
was the movie, yeah.
Yeah.
And they kind of have a genius like marketing plot because they made it in 2018, and
Okay.
but no big they couldn't sell it to anywhere. Nobody wanted to release it,
Okay.
and I think like now Mel Gibson's company bought the rights, and
Okay.
now it was released in theaters, and they sold it kind of like, because I think it's talking about like kids getting kidnapped and taken to South America, to Colombia, and like human trafficking is kind
Okay.
of the plot.
Okay.
And they were saying like Jim Caviezel was saying, yeah, you have to see this movie. Like you're gonna save the kids, and like if you watch this, you're kind of like contributing to saving the kids.
Really?
Yeah, and now I think like the far right in the US has kind of taken like that this is true. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
almost like a documentary that
Yeah.
it's like you remember all the
The Save the Children thing
save the
from
children.
QAnon. Yeah.
Yeah, all
Yeah, there
that
was, I
stuff.
remember I'd like I mean that got so big it was even like I think I heard about it listening to news podcast where they were like, yeah, they've taken that Save the Children slogan. Like there's a huge charity in the US called Save the Children.
Yeah,
And it has nothing to do with QAnon. It's been around for a while. And like um but QAnon kind of like stole their name and started putting it in, I think, and it was like kind of not necessarily, well, conspiracy, yeah, but they would put in like hashtags and stuff so that it would show up in places, and there it would just be a video about like we need to like think about children and like and people are like, yeah, I definitely agree with taking care of kids, and then the next video is like, and also lizard people, and you're like, wait a minute, like, or
yeah,
it would kind of go, it would quickly deep dive into some right wing conspiracy theory stuff. So right, so their marketing is like picking up on that idea.
yeah,
That's kind of
yeah,
insidious.
yeah. But the movie cost, it was something like 16 million to make, and they
Okay.
already made like 50 million on in the box office,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Well, like
it's
a
like
lot of
second.
movies should cost 16 million to make. Like there's some
Yeah,
movies you see like their budget and it's like 90 million. You're like, what? Where? Like, or 200 million or something like that. Um, but then I read somebody said, because the writers are on strike and now the actors are on strike too in the US. And um one person was saying that like, yeah, these budgets are so high because you can't hide $1 million from a $16 million budget. Like if you have a $200 million budget, then you can kind of skim $1 million here and
yeah.
there. And it was like, oh, okay. But okay, so yeah, so they've already made a bunch of money like that. So it's, yeah.
It worked already.
Oh, good. Well, great. Good for them.
Yeah, but it's just struck me as like that's like a genius marketing plot. Like take the current political environment and use it as marketing, and
Yeah.
like wrap it into religion, and people really
Yeah.
eating it up. It just struck me as like it didn't sound like genuine, like what he was saying, like saving the kids, and
Yeah.
that it sounded like marketing to me,
So
like
like,
from
yeah,
the
do you think
beginning.
he's just doing this for like for marketing to sell the
I'm
movie
not
or
I'm
something?
not sure. I'm not sure because
That's pretty evil though, if you're like,
yeah,
I mean,
because his kind of I think his career didn't go too well after he was in some big movie like Jim Caviezel,
yeah,
like
yeah,
The
yeah,
Passion of the Christ, and I think it like a few other like some series that did
yeah,
pretty good. And
yeah.
after that, I think it just went downhill, and
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is some kind of a like
Well,
attempt.
I, well, I don't know. I mean, he's hitching his wagon to Mel Gibson, who also had a career downfall. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
good part. They're good partners.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, I recommend going to see Barbie. It's
Yeah, I have to see that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
I think as reference, I think I have to see the other movie as well, but
There you go.
like maybe when
Is it
it's
out
on
here
some
in Finland?
streaming service. I'm not sure. It might be.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll wait for it to come to a streaming service or something. So I'm not
I
gonna
was
go to
thinking of
movies to see that one.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too because we were there last night, and it was like, actually, this is like really nice going to see a movie like this. I mean, it was the atmosphere was great because you're outside and
You can have a
you,
drink if you
you
want.
can have a drink. So they have, yeah, because it's like
Food.
it's behind the cafe, because so they have the cafe open. There's snacks and everything like that. But yeah, you can get a drink, you can get a sparkling wine or something like that. So that was really nice. And it's a courtyard, so it's small. There's not like a bad seat in the house, it's small in there, but it was nice. It was like, just seeing the movie is really nice. Of course, you could wait till it comes out, and it's going to come out, I don't know, and probably like, I guess if it does really well, then they wait. But if it doesn't do so
Mm,
well, then it comes to streaming like right away. Um, but no, it was nice. It was nice actually seeing the movie.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we get back into the like foreigner stuff, uh,
Okay.
like
With
how
this
do you see
foreigner
yourself?
here.
Yeah, you're my like go-to immigrant.
There you go.
Like
Yeah.
if you
All right.
if there's problems with like immigration or something, I'm gonna
That's a lot of
consult you
pressure.
always. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah. But how do you see yourself nowadays? You lived here for like 20 years. You have you have two passports. You have an Irish
Yeah.
passport, right?
I have an Irish passport. Yeah. So I'm an
So how
EU
do you see
citizen.
yourself like half Finnish or
I don't know. I mean, uh, uh, yeah, maybe. Like I said earlier, that I moved here, I was rather young, or was a young adult. So most of my adult life has been here in Finland. Like my only mortgage I've had in life is in Finland. So those kinds of things, adult things.
Hmm.
And uh I think this year or very soon probably I'm going to apply for Finnish citizenship, because the new government might kick me out.
Okay.
Might not like me so much, although we kind of know which immigrants they like and which immigrants they don't like.
Yeah.
They're
Hmm.
not very quiet about it or secretive about it. So, but I think I should have done it earlier. Same thing when I got my license in Finland. There's some rule that I think if you move here and you have a driver's license from a certain list of countries, you can kind of just transfer it over, and it's almost
Yeah.
no cost. And I didn't do that, so I had to pay the fees for a driver's license in Finland. It's quite expensive. I was like, well, this is stupid. I should have looked this up. But I didn't have a car for years while I
Yeah.
was here, so I didn't drive. Uh, so I mean, yeah, I do a lot of stuff in Finnish. I like, I talk to the doctors in Finnish. I talk to, you know, if I have to talk to my bank, I do Finnish. So, my kind of that part of my life is in the Finnish language, and with Finnish, what would you call them? Institutions, Finnish authorities, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you catch yourself
But But yeah,
like
but wait, I was
yeah.
going to say, like, then you have to kind of start defining, like, what is it, like, to the definition of, are you Finnish or not,
Hmm.
like, and that's kind of something I don't like going into so much, like.
Okay.
But yeah, what were you going to say?
Yeah. Do you catch yourself anytime like thinking in Finnish?
um like Spontaneously, kind of like,
Yeah,
not
because
like intentionally trying to think of a Finnish way to say something, or.
yeah, because sometimes I catch I'm thinking in English, or when I spent some time in South America and spoke mostly Spanish, I started to think in Spanish,
Yeah,
like
yeah, I mean,
form
people
your
talk
thoughts
about that.
in
I
the
think recently I caught myself where I knew the word in Finnish but not the word in English, and I sort of recognized that I was like, wait a minute, what is the word in English? I think I was trying to say it to one of my kids who I speak English with, and I was like, I couldn't, so I said it in Finnish. They speak Finnish too, and I said that, so I recognized that, and I was like, oh yeah, but the word, I couldn't find the word. I can't remember what it was now, but I couldn't find the word. And so there's that. Um, I think if I stub my toe, I'd probably still curse in English, I suppose.
yeah.
Like, although sometimes it's nice to curse in Finnish as well. Um, uh, but then again, like, I think a lot in like, how would you say, like almost like dialogue, kind of like
Mm.
thinking, like talking, and that's still mostly in English or all in English. I don't when I'm doing it, I don't kind of recognize what language it is, but I guess it still kind of feels English. But if I was in a situation where I was speaking Finnish, like, the whole time, if I was wherever with my wife's family who I speak Finnish with, then I think I would, yeah, start more thinking in Finnish. But yeah.
Yeah. How long did it take you kind of to
To
learn?
learn.
Yeah, because
I mean,
it said that Finnish is maybe one of the top three hardest languages to learn.
yeah, yeah. Well, but if you're in Finland, then it should be pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. I remember taking like class like night school classes in Finnish, and they helped. Um, they weren't that frequent. I think they were like once a week. They helped. But then when I was at the university here, I had to take Finnish as a minor subject. And those classes were more intense, and those helped more. Well, because I did it more. I had more. I had to, do the language more. But I think it was also like getting over the kind of first hurdle of getting some vocabulary, getting some basic grammar, basic vocabulary, this kind of stuff. Like once you get over that hurdle, I think more things start to fall into place, probably with any language. And like maybe that's like the hardest thing is like getting over that hurdle. But like the alphabet is the same relatively. There's a few other letters, but the rest is the kind of same. So the pronunciation with matching the written language sort of one to one is an easy thing. So that there were some things that were easier. And then once you start to get over these kind of basic hurdles, more and more things fall into place. But I think I've kind of plateaued now because I still don't like read in Finnish ever, unless it's something I have to read for, I don't know, whatever it is. But like I won't pick up the newspaper in Finnish or something like that. So I think I've kind of plateaued. I need to go back into it and grow my vocabulary more.
Yeah. How do you usually learn? How do you learn languages? Because for me, I don't know much grammar in any language, but
Okay.
I learn kind of by listening and repeating, like mimicking, and then
Yeah.
start remembering the words and how to say it. I usually I pick up the accent before I like in the beginning. I like I can mimic the accent way better than my actual vocabulary or any of
Okay.
that stuff. But how do you
Yeah.
learn?
I don't know. I mean, with Finnish, I learned it with a sort of the very kind of classic way of learning, where you start doing with like conjugating verbs and learning the pronouns and um, learning the grammar like that, like the sort of basis, um, and then basic vocabulary as well. Because you use these kind of basic vocabulary verbs to show, okay, this verb conjugates like this and this one conjugates like that. So I think I did it that way. But then later on, because when they teach you that, they teach you this kind of like written Finnish, which nobody speaks like. So later on, it was you had to like adjust and speak with Finns, and then things work totally differently. And then I think with that, I did it more like you were talking about. Like I learned like, okay, you kind of when you say it like this. You don't
Yeah.
say it like it's written. You talk like this or whatever. So that was kind of like mimicking or trying to mimic what
Mm.
you'd heard. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I went to when I was in university. I had Spanish classes in Finland,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went to study in Argentina for 6 months, and I was the worst student in our class
Oh
in
no.
the university. Yeah, we had one like where you had to just speak Spanish,
Yeah.
and the teacher came to me after we went to have some beers after the class, and he was like, "You're like you were the worst, but yeah, like you're nice, you're a good guy, but like
You're the worst.
because the Spanish is the worst.
Okay.
Like month after that, I went to Argentina to study in Spanish, like in the
Yeah.
university. But I was able to like get through 3 courses in Spanish in the university because when I just started hearing the language, I picked it up pretty fast.
Yeah, if you're immersed in it.
But like the Finnish style of teaching, like grammar first and uh just trying to memorize words from piece of paper, just doesn't work for me. I
Yeah,
tried it before.
I had teachers like here in Finland, like I had some teachers who were, you'd focus more on like kind of how to get through day-to-day stuff or conversational stuff. But then I also had teachers who were very like this old school, like write the verb on the board and then conjugate it with the different persons and that kind of stuff. And it was very like it was really frustrating because like students would ask a question in Finnish and you're kind of very basic, so you're really thinking about what you're trying to say and trying to
Yeah.
get it across. And they would say things like "ma" instead of "mina" or "sat" instead of "sina," and the teacher wouldn't answer them until they used like "mina" or "sina." And it was like, come on, like there's almost like you come on, of course she knows what the student's
Yeah.
asking. But of course, the goal was like, all right, you have to learn these basics and what these mean, that kind of thing. But at the same time, it was like this student was asking about something else in related to the teaching, but you could tell people were getting very frustrated with it. And so I don't think that worked so well for me either, except for like, well, it helped with the vocabulary, I guess. And plus I was able to know that like, okay, I mean, I've seen that kind of stuff. But yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think I would like to actually go back to Finnish class and um to help, like get some
Mhm.
materials to read and and start doing that and I have a bunch of kids books in my house that are in Finnish. I can start reading those. Um
Just have to
just
pick up Tuntematon sotilas and the unknown soldier and start reading that. Then you'll
There
be
you
like,
go. I wonder if we have it in Finnish in here. Yeah. Yeah.
then you'll get your citizenship. Like I read the book, now I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. It's at the end of the book. There's a piece
Yeah,
of paper, you just fill in your name. You get your citizenship there. You
because
just
now
rip out the last page.
because now they're talking about they're gonna have the exam
Yes, I read
to
that.
get the citizenship. So probably it's gonna be like questions from the unknown soldier. Like
Okay.
you have to read it and like
You have to answer questions about the different characters and everybody. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, something like that. Um, yeah, or maybe one of the other classics. And speaking of movies, I remember watching this is years ago and going to the theaters when what's the movie? Pan's Labyrinth came out.
Yeah, I remember
So
that. Yeah.
Guillermo del Toro. There's the one character in there, the fawn, that kind of mythical character that's in that world. And I couldn't understand the subtitle. I couldn't read them at all. Like it was really difficult for me to understand what was going on when that character talked. And uh, and then we came out of it, and I remember my wife saying like, "Yeah, that was difficult for me to read too." It was like kind of it was like Kalevala type, like
Okay.
poetic language, and it was. I have to go back and see it again,
Yeah, me
but
too, because I don't remember that, like thinking
yeah,
that when I saw it.
yeah, I have to watch it again and see if it's like that. But apparently the character in English as well is doesn't speak kind of straight. It would speak more like poetic, like a fallen character in
Yeah.
play or something. So because I mean I can understand if somebody's like, yeah, Shakespeare is difficult. I don't understand the language. It's like, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I remember trying Shakespeare like in my 20s in English. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
too hard.
Yeah, no, it is. It's difficult. And there's jokes in there that you don't know unless like you've read all about the history and this kind of stuff. And there's all kinds of stuff that like, stuff that would fly over my head as well. And I can more or less understand it, but yeah.
Is it in university or do they read it in high school as well? Like,
I read them in high school, which I think is too early for Shakespeare because of the language barrier. Because it's like it's Shakespeare's pretty good. I mean, I shouldn't say pretty good, but considered the best kind of thing. Uh, but I don't know if like you're going to get into it when you're 15 years old. You know, like it's just not, the themes in it are maybe for somebody a little bit older. I don't know. I just don't think that, maybe it was just me. I didn't have the motivation to sort of get into it. But later on, I was like, oh, like in university or in my 20s, I was like, oh, Shakespeare, this is really good. Like, I actually do like this a lot, even though a lot of the stuff was also flying over my head, some of the jokes or some of whatever. It was still really good. So, but at least when I was in high school, we did Shakespeare, we did Julius Caesar, and we did Much Ado About Nothing, I think. I feel like we did another one. I'd imagine a lot of schools do Romeo and Juliet. We didn't do that one. I think we did Much Ado About Nothing. And maybe, I don't know where I did Hamlet. Maybe, I don't think it was high school, but I imagine there might be a lot of high schools that would do Hamlet as well.
You mean doing the play? Or
no, like reading it in English class.
Yeah,
like
okay.
you would read the play. Because that's what we did with Julius Caesar. We read the play.
We never did any of those in high school or anywhere.
No, you didn't have to do Tunte Mantan Sotilas in high school, or?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Usually you could, I think there were some like reading you had to do, but I remember many times you could choose a book like yourself.
Okay.
From a certain genre, for example.
Yeah.
Maybe in high school there were like reading lists you had to do.
Yeah.
But I remember many times you could choose a book yourself.
Right. Right.
So I don't remember reading it in high school.
Okay.
And we didn't do much like not Shakespeare or any kind of like English poets or anything.
Right. No, yeah. Yeah, well, you wouldn't like it's I would have rather done, well, now I became a linguist, so I'd rather done more grammar in English class instead of Shakespeare, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I always hated grammar in English classes.
Yeah.
Because that was the only part I didn't know anything about.
Okay.
It's like when they were asking for words, I was always like, my hand was always raised, but like when it was like something about grammar, I didn't know it.
Yeah. Yeah. I came to it late as well. Like I started getting into it more in university, or later in university, I started getting into it more, like, and realizing like, oh, I need to know this stuff for this other thing I'm doing. I need to know some grammar for it. So started getting into it.
Yeah, and if you're teaching it, you better know it.
Then you should know it.
Yeah. Somebody might ask something about it.
Yeah, God forbid. Yeah. No questions, please. No, or yeah.
Yeah, you were saying you're gonna go apply for citizenship, but like I remember reading, I'm not sure when it was, but like, can you get 2 EU passports, like from 2 EU countries?
I mean, I got Irish citizenship so I could move here to Finland because it's EU. So I think I was just briefly looking at it, and if you can't, then I just have to give the Irish one up, which is fine with me. So yeah, they'll probably ask that. There's probably something on the form, but I think I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I just remember reading
rather than later.
Yeah. It's going to take a while before they change anything, but
can you really not get 2? Like if you're like,
I just remember reading. I'm not sure. I haven't verified anything. I remember reading it like years ago that you couldn't get 2 EU passports. That you could just be a citizen of 1 EU country at a time. But
okay,
that might have changed years ago. So don't
I was like,
trust me on this one.
Okay, I'll go to the police. My friend Chris said that
he read once that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, I have to look into it. And if I have to give it up, then that's fine. That's no big deal. But I'm sure they'll um do their what do you call it? They'll check. So that's fine. And now I guess I'm too old to go to the army as well, so they're not going to call me for that.
Yeah, you missed out.
I missed out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like if you're over 28 or something, you don't have to go.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
I think we have to like speak about the current political thing, like
yeah.
which is tied to that how you been like have you been reading the news about, because there's been news in like in Germany, in the UK, and now I yesterday I read there was an article in Washington Post about Riikka
Okay.
Purra, the current
Yeah.
finance minister, and his racist remarks on the
On the blog.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the Guardian covered it too, and the Guardian has a US um what do you call it? There's a Guardian US just like there's a Guardian UK.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been reading the news about it, and it's pretty um what's the word for it? It's I mean it's a lot of it's infuriating, the news that you
Mhm.
read, I think, with the new government, because on the one hand, um you kind of know what you're going to get with the Finns party. You know that they're going to be these like xenophobic and bigot and this kind of stuff, and it's like the the type of people who are like that know that that's the party they want to vote for. And even if they kind of, however they want to say that, no, we're for everybody, we um just want to make sure that immigrants aren't flowing into the country or something, whatever they would say to cover it up. It's that you know what type of party they are. They're populist. They're well, I'll put it this way: the racists know which party to vote for. They're not going to vote for the Social Democrats or the Left Alliance or something like that. They know which party is in their best interest or has their same thoughts in mind. Um, so it's like some of it's like not surprising when you see this kind of thing come up, that the head of the party and the Riikka Purra has some racist comments. It's not that surprising to find out. It's still infuriating. Um, and then at the same time, like I think it's pretty infuriating that like um, the prime minister made the Finns part of the government, and now the government might collapse. It might not even last like a month or two. It took them so long to kind of form a government, and now it might not even last, a couple months, or they say it's going to last 4 years. But like, I don't have any sympathy for that party either, because
Finnish, I think it's Finnish
it's
Coalition Party in English.
is it
Kokoomus. Yeah.
no, it's National Coalition Party.
Yeah,
Yeah,
National
it's
Coalition
National
Party.
Yeah, Kokoomus. Yeah, yeah. I don't have any sympathy for them, for the Kokoomus or National Coalition Party, because you made this bed. Like, you invited them in to go. What did you expect? Like, now you got to do it. You either have principles and morals and you don't work with a party like this, or then you say, well, we want to be in power, and in order to be in power, we got to take them on and take them on. Like, sorry, I don't have any sympathy for you. All these problems, you know, come back to you forming this government. You didn't have to have them in there. There's no like law saying you had to have them in there. But at the same time, it's just kind of infuriating that this is coming up. This is happening when a year ago, the scandal was the prime minister was too cool to be prime
Mm.
minister. The prime minister was cooler than everyone else, or
We don't have the
too.
same problem anymore.
We don't have the same. Yeah, that's what you get now. Made that was the scandal. Let's try to make a scandal out of the prime minister being too cool, and everybody was like, okay, and that got reported around the world as well. Um, but and then I see from some people, and especially immigrants, saying that, this is something that immigrants have been saying for a long time, that Finland is racist. And so maybe now it's good. It's finally coming out. It's
Mm.
coming to light. So maybe, it's Finland's going to have to reckon with it and face it rather than kind of cover it up or not talk about it at all or anything like that. So maybe that's good. But then again, I don't trust the people in power to really do anything about it. Like, I don't trust the National Coalition Party to have the backbone to do something about the Finns party. I certainly don't trust the Finns party to do anything about it. They're exactly where they want to be. And they don't have any problems like dog whistling, or even, it's not even dog whistling. It's being just saying straight racist things or sexist things or whatever it is. Or putting like people in power. Who was it? Junnila stepped down
Mm.
because he had a scandal of speaking at racist right-wing rallies and
Yeah, it
this
was
kind
some
of thing.
like neo-Nazi rally, like
Yeah, and yeah,
2019 or something.
and then who takes his place? But somebody who has, well, who was um,
Accused of
under
grooming
under investigation,
underage.
accused
Yeah,
of sexual harassment, and it's kind of like, are you shocked by this? Like, this is the party that you're doing business with. What do you expect?
yeah. And it's kind of surprising that they're not surprising, but they're kind of against all kinds of immigration, not just like refugees, but like all kinds. Because
Mm,
they're one of their things were that they would like that like Finnish people would get jobs before foreigners.
mm,
So it's not just like we don't have any money to bring refugees here. We just like it's
yeah,
so like obvious. And then on the other hand, like we have a at least not maybe not declining but stagnant population. We need more immigrants
that's the
like
thing is, yeah,
to
if you
survive in
look
the
at it,
future. So
yeah, if you look at it like from a, like you just said, like a factual basis, or like if you look at like, okay, can this work? No, it can't. There's not enough Finns for those jobs. Like, you need it. You're going to need people from somewhere.
and
Um,
they just think that like with this kind of image we're going to attract like the best of the best like German scientists and whoever
Absolutely
like
not. Yeah.
absolutely yeah, like you can't pick and choose like or of course you can try to pick and choose, but if your image is this bad, nobody who wants to come here.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
maybe
definitely.
maybe maybe some like refugees you have to like okay you don't have a choice, but like if you're really good at your job and you think like where do I want to start my business in, do I want to go like to Finland?
No,
Not
you're right.
not with
Yeah.
this kind of climate.
No. No, not with this, well, both the actual climate with like the
Yeah.
winters, the
Yeah.
darkness and stuff,
Mm.
but also the political climate too. Like, yeah, no, if you, yeah, if you're an immigrant who can pick and choose, if you're an immigrant who's thinking about, maybe getting job offers from companies in Finland or Germany or wherever it is around the world, um, why would you choose Finland over these other places where the climate is not the same? Not that like a lot of European countries don't have this
Mm.
similar kind of political climate going on right now. But then, why would you choose Europe? Maybe there's another company somewhere else, Asia, or, even North America. Why would you choose that? Like, if you're a person who it's the immigrants, those immigrants who can pick and choose. And then the government, yeah, they can't pick and choose their immigrants. Like, they need immigrants to do these jobs that are not, high level scientist
Mm.
or some kind of, specialized doctor or something like that. So yeah, they can't pick and choose. And there's a lot of like academia has a lot of international mobilization with academics applying across borders and this kind of thing. Why would you apply to Finnish universities if this is going on? What
Yeah.
for what?
Have you had messages from like colleagues abroad? Have they asked anything or?
No, no. I mean, I probably wouldn't be the person to ask anyways. Like, mm, but um, and so I haven't heard anything. And plus, now it's the summertime, so a lot of academics are on vacation in July. Um, but that's a good question because I don't know what I would tell them. You know, like,
But like in reality, the country hasn't changed in in an instant. This was
no.
always around, but now
Hmm.
it's like coming to light. Like what's the
Hmm.
actual like percentage of people who support like anti-immigration
Yep.
racism? Not I
Yeah.
don't want to say that everybody who voted for them is racist. I think
Too far.
that's too far, but like anti-immigration anyways.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. But and you can't necessarily blame them either because they get fed this um the talking points from the Finns party about how immigration is ruining the country and there's just there's too many immigrants coming in, this kind of stuff. And I mean, you go outside of any of the major cities and you don't see immigration. You don't see much of anything. Like the if the small towns in Finland are um wasting away or if they're disappearing or something like that, it's Finns moving to the cities. It's not
Yeah.
immigrants moving in and taking over some village in central Finland. It's Finns moving out of that place, moving to one of the cities. So it's kind of, but they've been fed this diet, or the talking points are always about that kind of thing, this evil immigration. So if that's what you keep hearing, then you can't necessarily blame somebody for thinking that way.
Yeah, and I think it's the fault of the other parties as well that how they speak about immigration is not helpful.
Mm.
So I think there's like these two extremes that either you want the borders to be closed or totally open. And
Mm.
that's not the real case, but that's how it sounds to many people that the other party is like they just want that everybody can come here no matter where you're from there, what's your
Yeah.
reason coming here, but that's not true. But
No.
the image is like that. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people think that's true, and I
Yeah.
think that's also like the other party's fault. They haven't been able to talk about immigration in a realistic way.
Yeah. Or their views on or their platform on immigration policy.
Yeah, that might be okay, but the way they're talking about it is
That's what I
somehow
mean. Yeah,
not getting through to
they
people.
haven't gotten the message out to people
Yeah,
about their policy. Yeah, their policy might be fine, but they haven't been able to translate it. Like,
I think
yeah.
there's a little bit of fear that it's kind of a somewhat of a like a hot potato. It's that you don't want to touch the subject. Like if you try to speak about immigration in certain way, it's kind of it's not an easy subject to talk about.
Right. Right.
Or it's easy if you're like really against it, as we can see. Like,
Well, that's the thing is,
but
yeah,
if
you
you're
feel like you're just
but
going to
if you
get attacked by
yeah
the right wing and they're just going to paint you as some sort of like open all the borders for everyone
yeah
and this kind of
or
thing.
or if you even a little bit if you agree with them, you're just like pushed onto that camp and you don't want to be there as
Oh,
well. So
right.
like finding like a middle ground is seems like really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, and it seems also like I don't know how much you talk about this with other people, but it seems like it's something that like it's always in the news, and the political parties are always being asked about it and talked about it and that kind of stuff. But like then like day to day, it's not what people are necessarily talking about. Like because it's not like you, or at least in my situation in life, immigration is not affecting me a
Mm.
lot. I mean, it happens. A lot of it happens behind the scenes because immigrants get pushed into jobs that you don't see. they get pushed into these kind of cleaners or these kinds of service jobs like that you don't see. So you have to see it in the news when some kind of scandal happens or something like this. But you don't necessarily like, I mean, I have friends who are also immigrants, but it's not something we necessarily talk about. It's like not something that sort of comes up. So you end up just seeing it in the news, and you see this kind of battle happening in the newspaper between the different sides, or on the news TV shows, the the news shows, the interview shows or whatever that they go on. But
yeah, I think another side is like the type of language you can use, like a lot of time, like the comments that Purra made, for example, it was in a like internet some like discussion board or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it's good that now we're finally having the discussion, like what can you say in a public forum that is considered racist or not racist?
Yeah.
Like, because there seems like some people, the boundaries are different between people.
Yep.
Somebody thinks that comment wasn't racist, and the other people say, no, that's definitely racist. Like, and I think it shouldn't be that unclear that what is racist and what's not racist. But I think we're not only now having the discussion.
Yep. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily, I mean, have to be like the slurs that Purra used. It can also be other things that I think you're right, that people, there's like a borderline, people fall on one side or the other. I think this happened and is happening in English as well, where you see that what used to be considered curse words were, these bad words like the George Carlin, like fuck, and these kinds of things, like, but their power has gone down, and the F word, say, is not as powerful as it used to be. It's more like damn or shit or something. And then damn and is kind of like not even a curse word anymore. It's like Dickens or something. Those have gone down at the same time that the slurs have become much more taboo in English speaking society. So slurs and this kind of like bigoted language has become much more taboo. Like, those have power now, and I think that reflects society changing in a way, like society being more like understanding of like, wait a minute, like the F word, you say it when you kick your toe. If you're being mean to someone, then okay, that's bad, you shouldn't say that. But like, you just, you say it when you kick your toe, or you say it whatever like that. But like the racist words are like, wait, that's not good. So maybe the same thing is happening in Finland as well.
I think so. And I think we're behind like the US on this, because everybody knows. Let me explain. Like, okay, in the US, there's been like racial differences for a long time.
Yeah.
You have been speaking about this for a long, but in Finland, like in the 80s, there were no immigrants here, just a few. So this is kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
In that sense. So in the 80s and 70s, nobody talked about it because there weren't any immigrants in Finland.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a recent problem. So we haven't evolved yet all the boundaries and such, like what is acceptable and that, because there hasn't been that like open discussion about it for a long time.
Right. Yeah.
But I think in the US there has been. So I think in that sense you're ahead, like in like, I don't know, linguistic sense, kind of. I think it's clear in English, like what is acceptable and what is not.
Okay.
Than in Finnish.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like there was the stuff that Purra said in like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the newer stuff in his blog from 2019, and he was calling like Muslim women who wore burqas, he was calling them like black sacks or black bags.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if you say that in English, you're pretty sure that's
that's pretty
racist.
Sure it's racist.
And I'm sure that in Finnish that is racist too. But he said that like it's not.
Oh,
he was just like trying to say that like women are treated badly in Islam, or That was
Yeah.
kind of his point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But
like, yeah. What's his name? The former prime minister of the UK, Boris Johnson,
yeah,
said something very similar about women in burqas and calling them something like post boxes or something like that. And it was, everyone was like, that's incredibly racist. And he was like, oh, what? It's like, not, this guy, but so it's the same thing. But you're right. Like, as soon as he said it, it was like, people were like, that you can't, that's racist. And with Porter, like, yeah, I don't know if there was a lot, I think a lot of people would say it is racist, but I guess there's some that would fall on the other line, saying
yeah,
that, well,
he's
it's not like the traditional slurs for,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So that's kind of, but it's interesting that nobody said anything about it in 2019 when she wrote about it. But now that she's the finance minister, now it's all like coming up, and
because she was
now we're
in politics in
yeah, she
2019, correct?
was in
Yeah,
yeah, she was in the parliament.
she was in parliament.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so not like she was a nobody. That, but it's just like that's what I was saying before, that now the discussion is kind of starting now, like
yeah,
that people are bringing all this old stuff up, and like then we're deciding, like, is this okay to say or is it not, like where's the
yeah,
line?
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
now we're having the discussion about that,
yeah, yeah.
which is
Well,
a
I
good
mean,
thing, I think.
it's a good thing. Yeah, yeah, it's a good thing that needs to happen. It goes back to what I was saying, like um, a lot of people saying that, like, no, like Finland has been racist for a while, and Finnish people have been racist for, like, I've experienced racism in Finland, but it just didn't get talked about. It didn't get, like, Finland maybe coasting on this idea that, like, we're this Nordic wonderland,
Hmm.
this socialist utopia and this kind of stuff. And it was like, well, maybe, if
Yeah,
you're Finnish and you're from the Finnish middle to upper class, like, then maybe. But so maybe it's good that this stuff is actually coming up and it can get talked about. Like I said, I don't necessarily trust the current government to be the one that do anything about it, but the next one, if or then they get forced to do something about it by opposition parties, maybe even one of the parties that's in the government. I don't know. We'll see if they have the backbone to do something about it. Like,
yeah, because I think Finland, like, it is a great country. Like
mm,
I've not always thought that, but like now when I'm older, I kind of like seeing the world. I like seeing many different countries. Like
yeah,
it is a good country, but we're not perfect. Like,
no,
and there's a
but
lot of,
it's,
like
yeah,
you said, like if you search YouTube and search Finland, there's kind of this, like, few years ago, like a lot of reporters came here and reported about the Finnish, like, healthcare, the education system, like,
yeah,
and it's really, it gives you a picture of, like you said, this utopia that everything's perfect,
yeah,
and we've won like 5 times. What is it, that, like, the happiest country in the world,
yeah,
and it gives you this image that everything is perfect when it's not.
yeah, yeah.
But it doesn't mean that, like, we're terrible either.
No, you're right. And it's like that. I think that happiest country in the world, it's not just a bunch of Finns saying, like, are you happy or not? Like,
Yeah,
I think it takes into account, like, how much corruption is in society and that kind of stuff. And there is a lot less than there is in other countries. Finland is usually quite high on the scale of, or the high on the list of, like, least corrupt countries, and having, like, a free media, you know, or news media and that kind of thing. So you're right. There's a lot of um, really
I-
good things here.
yeah, and
Um,
I think that's why Finland won, because they didn't ask Finnish people, like, it just took all the different,
yeah, even with asking Finnish people, the other stuff outweighed.
yeah,
Yeah,
outweighed.
yeah,
Like, Finnish people, like, we're probably in the, like, 50th place or something. But,
of happiest.
yeah, but if you
It
take,
depends on
like,
when you ask them. If you ask in the summer,
yeah,
you
true.
know, if you ask in, like, January, maybe not. Like, um, but yeah, I agree with you. Like, it's kind of, um, I think, I remember when I wasn't here very long, only a few years, and Finland had won um first place in the um, there's a test I called like the PISA exam,
Pizza
and it's
test,
like
yeah.
the PISA test. It tests like schools basically. I think high schools or middle schools. And Finland had placed first, so it had best schools in the country. And like one of the headlines in the
The
paper was
world.
something the world, sorry, best school, yeah, in the
Yeah.
world. And one of the headlines in the paper was about how like here's the things we need to make the school system better. And it was like, so you just got first place,
Yeah.
like but it was like we need to do this, these are the problems with the school system. And it was like that kind of mentality is good to have. That kind of like is good. Like, okay, we have these good things. We don't need to focus on that, but these other things we do need to focus on.
That's one thing that like the politicians they use quite often, like this election also. Like if you listen to their slogans, you think this is like a nuclear wasteland or something like
Yeah.
it's terrible and everything's gonna shit and then we're like we've won the like happiest country in the world 5 times in a row and they're talking like it's like the nuclear apocalypse and it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
but I guess you always have to find something like you said to get better at and improve like they have to
Yeah.
like talk about something like
Yeah.
they can't say that everything's great we don't have anything to talk
Let's
about
just,
like
yeah,
you
nothing to
have to
talk
find
about. Things are
something
fine.
yeah
Yeah. 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 I mean, there like there are towns and villages in Finland which are disappearing. There's people moving out in them, and all that's left is older people who need services, who need healthcare, who need all kinds of different services. But there's no kind of younger people to provide them. There's nothing going on. There's no stuff for young people to do. There's no that kind of stuff. So like that's a concern. That stuff is, even if you don't want to move out of the village, then you're kind of left there alone. Like, so I mean that's an actual concern, but it's not because of what some politicians would tell you.
no
Like,
that's kind of
yeah,
that's happening everywhere that people are moving to big cities and
yeah,
the rural areas are going to only old people live there and there was kind of in the when the corona was going on people were moving back to the countryside
right.
more than before but it's not enough to keep them alive
Yeah, and
so
people were vacationing in Finland because they couldn't go anywhere else. So there was like a lot of people going up north.
but actually I think Finland's going to be now that the like if you look at southern Europe
Mm,
like look at the weather now it's like 35-40 degrees
yeah,
I think in a few years people aren't going to go there in the summertime they're going to come more
more
north
north.
where it's like 25
Yeah,
20 so I
yeah,
think
because it's a few years in a row now. It's been like that. You
yeah I
know.
just read some articles that people are just trying to survive they're on a
Yeah,
holiday in Spain and they're just surviving like
yeah.
and paying like a few €1,000 for just survival holiday
Oh yeah.
so I
Yikes.
think Finland's going to be a kind of a winner in this unfortunate event that like global warming but more
Yeah.
people are going to want to come here
Good. They can
to
get
suffer
jobs and stuff like
yeah
that and help out with the stagnant population there, you know?
yeah but I
They
just
could
mean for a holiday for example
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so I think the tourism is going to move up north from South Europe slowly
yeah,
but like steadily
yeah, yeah. Well, the tourism board needs to get on that like happiest country in the world thing,
yeah
and use that. Like talking about language too, because they, this word sisu, that's in there a lot in the tourism stuff and the Finnish stuff, like what sisu means and all this kind of thing. So they, it's a what does sisu mean? It means tourism money. It means
yeah
that's what it means.
they
But
just made
yeah,
a movie came out this year called Sisu and I think it did okay in the States as well
yeah, it's by the same, isn't it the same people who did Rare Exports?
I think so I'm not
And there was
sure
another one they did. I can't remember now. Um, yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but somebody told me, one of my students told me that if you've seen the trailer, then you know exactly what the movie is. And I was like, really? They're like, it's 100% that. Like, so
Yeah. I think
yeah.
it's World War II action movie from like northern Finland.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
The
there's Nazis in it.
yeah, the kind of the War of Lapland, the Lapland
Yeah.
War
Yeah.
of like
Yep.
45.
Yeah. Yeah. But that should be out already. Like that's not in the
It's a
theaters anymore.
no,
Is
it's
it?
been out for months.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I have to watch that with the kids. All right, kids,
You
here's
should.
our Cecil movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe the citizen application, the test is going to have questions about that movie on it.
Yeah, you have to watch it and read Tuntematon sotilas, and
There you go.
then you're in.
Yeah, that's right. Come in with my polka, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that'd be a bad idea.
And a bottle of vodka on the other
There you go.
hand, then you're like, we accept
Yeah,
you now
yeah, yeah,
as
yeah.
one of our own.
A bottle of what is it? Sheriffi,
Yeah.
Gallerina. There you
Yes.
go. Yeah, man.
All right. I think we talked
Hey,
like hour and 15. I think
cool.